Can you imagine pouring your heart and soul, every single ounce of your being, into raising a child, only for that child to publicly declare that another man, a man who walked into his life years later, was his real father? Was I wrong to feel utterly betrayed, to feel like my entire world had been shattered into a million pieces? Tell me, honestly, if you would have handled this gut-wrenching situation with more grace, more understanding, or if you too would have felt the sting of 1,000 bee stings right through your very core. Because right now, even looking back, the wound still feels fresh, and I'm still questioning if I'm the villain in my own tragedy. It was at my son, Ethan's, high school graduation party, a day that was supposed to be a joyous celebration of his achievements, a testament to all the late nights, the sacrifices, the endless love I had poured into him since the moment he drew his first breath. Instead, it became the day he publicly disowned me, not with anger, but with a quiet, devastating conviction that sliced deeper than any shouted insult ever could. Let me take you back to the beginning, to a time before the bitterness, before the resentment, before the crushing weight of those words. I met Sarah, Ethan's mother, in college. We were young, idealistic, and deeply in love. Ethan was born a year after we graduated, a beautiful, healthy boy who instantly became the center of my universe. I remember holding him for the first time, this tiny bundle of warmth, and feeling a connection so profound, so overwhelming, that it changed me forever. I swore then and there that I would be the best father I could possibly be. Sarah and I, like many young couples, faced our share of struggles. We tried to make it work, truly we did, but after 5 years, we both acknowledged that we were better off as friends and co-parents. The divorce was amicable, or as amicable as divorces can be when a child is involved. We both agreed that Ethan's well-being was paramount. I moved into an apartment a few blocks away, making sure I was always close, always accessible. We had a 50-50 custody arrangement, and I cherished every moment I had with him. From teaching him how to ride a bike, scraped knees, and all, to helping him with his science fair projects that usually ended up covered in glitter and questionable goo, I was there. I coached his little league team, sat through countless school plays, celebrated every birthday with an elaborate cake I often burnt slightly, but he always pretended was delicious. I was his primary caregiver during my weeks, the one who read him bedtime stories, dried his tears, and celebrated his triumphs, big and small. My life revolved around Ethan. He was my purpose, my joy, my everything. Even when my own career aspirations had to take a back seat, I never regretted it. His smile, his laughter, his innocent trust, that was all the reward I needed. I dated casually, but never seriously, always putting Ethan first. I didn't want to introduce anyone who might disrupt our routine or make him feel less important. Sarah, however, moved on more quickly. About 2 years after our divorce, she met Mark. Mark was, by all accounts, a good man. He was stable, financially secure, and seemingly kind. When Sarah first told me about him, I felt a pang of something unidentifiable, not jealousy, exactly, but perhaps a fear of being replaced. I pushed it down. Ethan needed stability, and if Mark made Sarah happy, and by extension, created a more harmonious environment for Ethan, then I was all for it. I met Mark a few times, at school events or when picking up Ethan. He was always polite, if a little distant. He seemed to genuinely care for Ethan, which was all I asked for. Over time, Mark became a more permanent fixture in Ethan's life. He moved in with Sarah, and soon after, they got married. Ethan was the ring bearer at their wedding. I remember seeing pictures of it, seeing Ethan smiling brightly next to Mark, and feeling a strange mix of happiness for them and a deep, quiet ache in my chest. It was a visual representation of a family unit that I was no longer a part of, at least not in the same way. Still, I persevered. I doubled down on my efforts to be the best father I could be during my time with Ethan. We continued our traditions, our Friday night pizza and movie nights, our Saturday morning pancake breakfasts, our annual camping trips. I taught him how to fish, how to change a tire, how to be respectful and kind. I tried to instill in him the values I believed in, the ones my own father had taught me. I believed we had a strong, unbreakable bond. He still called me Dad, still ran to me for comfort when he was upset, still sought my advice on everything from homework to friendships. He was my son, my flesh and blood, and I loved him more than life itself. As Ethan entered his teenage years, things subtly began to shift. It started small. He would occasionally compare my house to Mark's, usually in terms of amenities. Mark has a bigger TV, Dad, or Mark's house has a pool. I brushed it off as typical teenage observations. Then it progressed to comments about lifestyle. Mark takes us on really fancy vacations, Dad. Or Mark bought me this really cool gaming console. I understood. Mark was well off, significantly more so than I was. I worked a stable, respectable job, but I wasn't wealthy. I couldn't provide the same luxuries. I tried to explain to Ethan that love wasn't about money or possessions, but about presence, about connection, about effort. He'd nod, seemingly understanding, but the comparisons continued. Mark was always buying him the latest gadgets, taking him to exclusive events, funding expensive hobbies. I, on the other hand, was there for the everyday stuff, the mundane but essential things, school pickups, homework help, listening to his teenage dramas, teaching him responsibility. I was the one who taught him how to manage a budget, how to save for something he really wanted, how to appreciate hard work. I was teaching him life skills, not just showering him with gifts. I thought that mattered more. I thought he understood the difference. My financial situation also became a point of contention with Sarah. She started hinting that I should contribute more, even though our divorce decree stipulated our financial responsibilities. She pointed to Mark's generosity, implying I was falling short. It hurt, because I was giving everything I had, financially and emotionally. I felt like I was constantly being measured against Mark, and constantly coming up short in their eyes. This pressure, combined with Ethan's increasingly frequent comparisons, started to gnaw at me. I tried talking to Ethan about it, gently, carefully. I explained that everyone's financial situation was different, and that my love for him wasn't tied to how much I could spend. He'd just shrug, or say, "I know, Dad, it's fine." But it didn't feel fine. A cold dread began to settle in my stomach, a premonition that something fundamental was shifting. The calls became less frequent when he was at Sarah's. He started declining our long-standing traditions, preferring to spend time with Mark, who would often take him to sporting events or concerts that I couldn't afford. When he was with me, he seemed distracted, almost impatient, like he was just counting down the minutes until he could go back to the other house. I felt myself slowly, agonizingly, being pushed to the periphery of his life. It was a slow, agonizing bleed, and I felt powerless to stop it. I even tried talking to Sarah about it, expressing my concerns about Mark's increasing influence and how it was affecting my relationship with Ethan. She dismissed my worries, saying I was being insecure, and that I should be grateful Ethan had another positive male role model in his life. A positive male role model? I was his father. I was the male role model. The injustice of it all burned. The cracks in our relationship grew wider and deeper, until they felt like chasms. Ethan started confiding in Mark more than me. Mark was the one he went to for advice about girls, about college applications, about his future. I, his biological father, was relegated to the role of a secondary figure, a necessary but increasingly irrelevant part of his life. This went on for years, a slow erosion of what I thought was an unbreakable bond. I tried everything I could think of. I scheduled special outings, tried to reignite our old traditions, offered to help with anything he needed. But it felt like I was constantly chasing a ghost, grasping at straws. He was polite, but distant. Always busy. Always had plans with Mark. I saw pictures on social media, Ethan and Mark at a football game, Ethan and Mark on a fishing trip, Ethan and Mark at a fancy restaurant. It felt like they were building a life together, a life that excluded me. I knew, intellectually, that a step-parent could be a wonderful addition to a child's life, but this felt different. This felt like a deliberate substitution, not an addition. I started to resent Mark, not for being a good person, but for seemingly usurping my role without any effort on my part. He just had to exist and be rich. He didn't have to change diapers, or deal with sleepless nights, or sacrifice his own dreams. He just stepped in when Ethan was already a well-adjusted, charming young man, and bought his affection. And the worst part? Ethan was letting him. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. The day of the graduation party arrived, and the air was thick with tension, at least for me. Sarah and Mark had hosted it at their sprawling backyard, a stark contrast to my modest apartment. Everyone was there, our extended families, Ethan's friends, teachers. I swallowed my pride and put on a brave face, determined to celebrate my son's milestone, even if it felt like I was watching it from behind a pane of glass. I even brought him a thoughtful gift, a custom-engraved watch, something he could keep forever, a reminder of our bond. I saw Mark hand him the keys to a brand-new car, a shiny sports car, right there in front of everyone. Ethan's eyes lit up, and he hugged Mark tightly, thanking him profusely. The crowd murmured their appreciation. My carefully chosen watch felt pathetic in comparison, a tiny trinket next to a grand gesture. I felt a familiar ache in my chest, but I pushed it down. This was about Ethan, not about my insecurities. Later, during the toasts, Sarah spoke first, a heartfelt speech about Ethan's journey and her pride. Then Mark spoke, eloquently, about how proud he was to have watched Ethan grow into such an incredible young man, about the bond they shared. He even teared up a little. It was a perfect performance, and everyone was touched. Then it was my turn. I stood up, my throat dry, my hands trembling slightly. I had prepared a speech filled with memories of Ethan's childhood, of our special moments, of my unwavering love. I cleared my throat, looked at Ethan, and started to speak. Ethan, I began, my voice a little shaky, I remember the day you were born. Before I could continue, Ethan, my own son, my flesh and blood, stood up and interrupted me. He walked over to Mark, put an arm around him, and faced the crowd. His voice, clear and steady, resonated across the stunned silence of the backyard. Before my dad says anything else, he began, and the way he emphasized my dad immediately sent a chill down my spine. I just want to say something. Mark, he continued, turning to his stepfather, you've been more than a stepfather to me. You've been my real father. You've shown me what it means to be a man. You've supported me, guided me, and loved me unconditionally. You earned it. You earned the right to be my dad. And then, he hugged Mark again, a long, tight embrace, as tears welled up in both their eyes. The crowd, after a moment of stunned silence, erupted in applause. People started dabbing their eyes. Sarah beamed, clearly touched. My jaw dropped. The carefully chosen words, the public declaration, the raw emotion, it was a performance designed to solidify Mark's place and utterly erase mine. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my carefully crafted speech disintegrating in my mind, my gift feeling heavy and meaningless in my pocket. The applause felt like a physical assault, each clap a blow to my heart. My own son, on his graduation day, had just told everyone, unequivocally, that I wasn't his real father. The words echoed in my ears, a cruel, mocking refrain. My stomach churned, a knot of grief and rage tightening within me. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. It was as if a lifetime of love, sacrifice, and devotion had been reduced to nothing, utterly invalidated in a single, devastating moment. I remember the smiles on Sarah's and Mark's faces, the pitying glances from some of the other guests, the way Ethan didn't even look at me. He just held on to Mark, basking in the adoration of the crowd. I turned around, my feet moving on their own accord, and walked out of that party. I didn't say a word, didn't make a scene, didn't even grab my coat. I just walked, the roar of the applause fading behind me, replaced by the deafening silence of my own broken heart. I walked until my legs ached, until the setting sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, colors that seemed to mock the darkness settling over my soul. I didn't go home. I couldn't bear to be in my apartment, surrounded by all the memories of Ethan that now felt tainted, hollow. I drove aimlessly for hours, the radio off, my mind replaying Ethan's words over and over again, each repetition a fresh stab. You earned it. Earned what? The right to replace me? What had I done, or not done, that made him feel I hadn't earned the title of father? Was it my financial situation? My inability to provide him with the same luxuries as Mark? Was love truly so transactional? I cried that night, a deep, guttural cry that shook my entire body, a cry not just for the loss of my son, but for the loss of my identity as a father. It was a profound grief, unlike anything I had ever experienced. The next day, I woke up with a crushing headache and an emptiness so vast it felt like a physical void in my chest. I received a text from Sarah, a curt message asking why I had left. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My phone buzzed again, this time a call from Ethan. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the answer button, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. What would I say? How could I possibly articulate the depth of my pain, the feeling of betrayal that consumed me? What explanation could he possibly offer that would mend a wound so deep? He called a few more times over the next few days, leaving voicemails, sounding confused, then increasingly frustrated. I listened to them, each one a fresh twist of the knife. He wasn't apologizing, he was demanding an explanation for my absence, as if I was the one who had wronged him. He said things like, "Dad, where are you? Why aren't you answering? I don't understand." Not a single word of remorse, not a hint of understanding for the devastation he had wrought. After a week of this, a strange numbness began to set in. The grief was still there, a dull ache beneath the surface, but it was accompanied by a cold, hard resolve. If he had chosen Mark, if he had publicly disavowed me, then what was left for me to do? I had poured my entire life into him, only to be discarded so easily. So, I stopped trying. I stopped calling. I stopped responding to Sarah's increasingly insistent texts. I pulled away completely. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, like amputating a part of myself, but I couldn't continue to offer my heart to someone who had so casually ripped it out. I knew I was risking losing him entirely, but I also knew I couldn't survive another blow like the one he had dealt. For months, there was silence. No calls from Ethan, no visits, nothing. Sarah continued to send furious texts, accusing me of abandonment, of being selfish, of hurting Ethan. She said I was a terrible father for walking away. I just deleted them. What did she know about being a father? What did she know about being replaced? It was only after about 6 months that I received a letter in the mail, a thick envelope with the return address of a law firm. It was from Sarah's lawyer. She was petitioning the court to terminate my parental rights, citing my absence and lack of involvement in Ethan's life. She was essentially asking the court to make Mark Ethan's legal father. The letter was cold, clinical, and utterly devastating. It was the final nail in the coffin. My son had not only rejected me emotionally, he was now working with his mother to erase me legally. The thought sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. I sought legal counsel, of course. My lawyer advised me that contesting it would be a long, arduous, and emotionally draining battle, especially given Ethan's public declaration and Sarah's narrative of my recent abandonment. He said it would be an uphill climb to prove that I was still a fit parent, that I hadn't truly abandoned my son, when all the recent evidence pointed otherwise. He said the courts often prioritize the child's wishes and stability. I sat there, listening to him, and a strange sense of calm settled over me. What was the point? Why fight for someone who clearly didn't want me? Why continue to expose myself to this pain? If Ethan genuinely wanted Mark to be his father, both emotionally and legally, then perhaps it was time to let go. The idea was terrifying, but also, in a perverse way, liberating. It meant the pain could finally stop. It meant I could start to heal, to rebuild a life for myself that wasn't centered around someone who had so casually cast me aside. So, I made the agonizing decision. I didn't contest the petition. I signed the papers, effectively surrendering my parental rights. It was the hardest signature I have ever put to paper, a silent acknowledgement of the end of my journey as Ethan's father. I remember the pen shaking in my hand, the taste of bitter tears in my mouth. It felt like I was signing away my own soul. I didn't see Ethan after that. I blocked his number, blocked Sarah's. I severed all ties, not out of malice, but out of a desperate need for self-preservation. It was the only way I knew how to survive the heartbreak. I needed to disappear from their lives so I could try and put the shattered pieces of my own back together. I packed away all the photos of Ethan, all the mementos, all the things that reminded me of what we once were. It was an act of profound grief, a burial of a past that could never be reclaimed. Life since then has been different. Quieter. Emptier. The holidays are the hardest, those times when families gather, and the absence of Ethan feels like a gaping wound. I've tried to move on, to find new passions, new connections. I started volunteering, dedicating my time to helping others, hoping that by pouring my energy into something positive, I could fill the void left behind. It's a slow process, this healing. Some days are better than others. Some days, I can almost believe that I'm okay. Other days, a memory will surface, a silly joke Ethan used to tell, the way he scrunched his nose when he concentrated, the warmth of his small hand in mine, and the pain comes flooding back, fresh and raw. I often wonder about him, about how he's doing, if he ever thinks of me, if he ever regrets his words. I know he probably doesn't. He has his real father now, the one who earned it. I sometimes wonder if Mark is a good father, a truly present father, or if he's just the wealthy benefactor. I wonder if Ethan will ever understand the depth of what he did, the irreparable damage he caused. I doubt it. He probably thinks I'm the villain, the one who abandoned him, the one who couldn't handle his truth. And maybe, in his narrative, I am. But I know my truth. I know the love I gave, the sacrifices I made. I know the pain I endured. So, here I am, sharing my story, not for pity, but for catharsis, and perhaps for some understanding. Was I wrong to walk away? Was it selfish to protect my own heart after being so thoroughly rejected? Or was it the only rational choice I had left? It's a question that haunts me, even now. I miss him every single day, with an ache that never truly subsides. But I also know that I couldn't have stayed. I couldn't have continued to be a ghost in my own son's life, a constant reminder of what he didn't want. The day he said those words, he didn't just disown me as a father, he killed a part of me. And I'm still trying to figure out how to live with that loss. Like this video if you were on my side, if you understand the impossible position I was put in. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories of real people navigating the messy, complicated realities of life. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. Tell me what you would have done. I'll see you all in the next story.